Royal families project perfection, crowns, heirs, and unbroken bloodlines. But what happens when a child is born who doesn't fit that perfect image? For centuries, the answer was chilling. Hide them, erase them, pretend they never existed. Tonight, we uncover the forgotten stories of royal children born with Down syndrome. Children of privilege, yet sentenced to lives of secrecy. And as you'll see, the truth is darker than most history books dare to tell. Before we step inside the palace gates, let's pause to understand what Down syndrome really is. Down syndrome is a genetic condition caused by an extra copy of chromosome 21. That single extra chromosome changes how the body and brain develop. People with Down syndrome may share certain traits like almond-shaped eyes, a flatter facial profile, shorter stature. They may also experience learning differences, and some face serious health conditions like congenital heart disease. But here's what's often overlooked. People with Down syndrome are not defined by those challenges. They are known for warmth, kindness, and resilience. Families often describe them as the heart of their home. Joyful, honest, and deeply empathetic. With modern medicine and support, they now live into their 60s and beyond, build careers, form friendships, and live meaningful lives. They act in films, compete in the Special Olympics, work in businesses, and advocate for their own rights. Their lives are not ones of pity, but of possibility. Centuries ago, though, society didn't see it that way. Disability was misunderstood. Families, even wealthy, powerful ones, were ashamed. And in royal households, where bloodlines were sacred, heirs had to be flawless, and image mattered more than truth. Children born different faced especially cruel fates. What follows are 5 stories of love, loss, erasure, and survival that reveal the dark destiny of royal children who never fit the perfect picture. Our story begins in Britain, with Nerissa and Katherine Bowes-Lyon, first cousins of Queen Elizabeth II. Nerissa was born in 1919. Katherine followed in 1926. They were daughters of John Herbert Bowes-Lyon, brother of the Queen Mother. Both sisters were diagnosed with severe developmental disabilities, widely reported to include Down syndrome. At first, they lived quietly at home, but by the 1940s, the decision was made to send them to Royal Earlswood, an institution for people with learning disabilities. And here's where the story takes a darker turn. In official family records, Nerissa and Katherine were listed as dead, even though they were very much alive. For decades, the lie went unchallenged. Nerissa died in 1986, buried in a grave marked only by a plastic tag. Katherine lived on until 2014, spending nearly her entire life behind institutional walls. Few family members ever visited. Few even acknowledged they existed. Imagine that, royal blood in your veins, but erased from your family tree. And yet across the channel, another leader, one of the most powerful men of the 20th century, made a very different choice when faced with the same reality. In 1928, Charles de Gaulle, the man who would later lead Free France during World War II, and his wife Yvonne, welcomed their youngest daughter Anne. Anne was born with Down syndrome. At the time, medical knowledge was limited. Many families, especially wealthy ones, institutionalized children like Anne, believing it was the only option. But not Charles and Yvonne. Anne lived with her parents at home. De Gaulle's famously strict demeanor would melt whenever she entered the room. Friends recalled how he carried her on his shoulders, played with her, and called her his joy. He once admitted she kept him from becoming stone-hearted. Anne faced serious health struggles. She had a weak heart, a common complication. In 1948, at just 20 years old, she passed away. Her death broke her parents, but they refused to let her memory vanish. Charles and Yvonne later founded a charitable foundation in her honor, supporting children with disabilities. Princess Alexandrine of Prussia was born in 1915, granddaughter of Kaiser Wilhelm II. From childhood, she showed developmental differences, often described by historians as traits of Down syndrome. Unlike the Bowes-Lyon sisters, Alexandrine was not erased from her family history. She lived at home, appeared in family photographs, and was openly acknowledged as part of the dynasty. But acknowledgement did not mean freedom. Alexandrine lived a sheltered life. She never married, never held public duties, and was kept under her family's watchful eye. Her world was confined, her opportunities tightly controlled. She lived until 1980, but always in the shadows. Not hidden away entirely, yet never allowed a full role in society. Her story illustrates a middle ground, not erased, but not embraced either. Prince John was born in 1905, the youngest son of King George V and Queen Mary. John did not have Down syndrome. Instead, he lived with epilepsy and developmental difficulties. But his story is often told alongside those of children with Down syndrome, because the royal response was so similar: silence, seclusion, and erasure. As his seizures worsened, John was moved to a cottage on the Sandringham estate. He was cared for by his beloved nanny, but kept away from public life. He rarely appeared in photographs, and the public knew almost nothing of him. In 1919, at just 13 years old, John suffered a fatal seizure. His death stunned the nation, not only because he was gone, but because many people didn't even know he had existed. Prince John's story reveals the same pattern. When a royal child didn't fit the perfect image, the solution was quiet removal, out of sight, out of mind. Why did royal families act this way? Because monarchy isn't just about family, it's about performance. A royal heir is not only a child, they are a symbol. They represent strength, purity, and continuity. Every portrait, every public appearance reinforced the idea that the monarchy was flawless. A child with Down syndrome disrupted that narrative. In eras when disability was poorly understood, it was seen as weakness, even shame. Doctors sometimes labeled such children as defective. Superstitions linked disability to curses, sin, or punishment. Across society, families of all classes institutionalized disabled children. But for royals, the stakes were higher. A disabled heir could spark whispers about bloodline purity. A single photograph could damage the monarchy's image, and so they hid the truth. Family records were altered, names were erased. Children were locked away in institutions, out of sight and out of mind. It wasn't always born of hatred. More often, it was fear. Fear that the illusion of perfection would crack, and with it the crown itself. Today, we know that children with Down syndrome can live full, meaningful, and loving lives. They can learn, laugh, and contribute to their families and communities. But for centuries, history wrote them out. Their lives were shortened, not just by medical limits of the time, but by secrecy, neglect, and the crushing weight of shame. Royal children had palaces, servants, and privilege, yet many lived lonelier lives than the poorest commoner. And in the history books, their names vanished. They became ghosts in the margins of royal lineage charts, present in life, erased in memory. In the 20th century, things began to change. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably. Medical advances extended life expectancy. Awareness grew that disability did not erase humanity. Royal families, too, began to face pressure. Princess Juliana of the Netherlands openly raised her daughter Christina, who was born nearly blind. In recent years, European royals have spoken more about mental health, inclusion, and disability awareness. But the shadow of the past lingers. The silence of centuries cannot be undone overnight. For every Prince John whose name we know, there are others we will never find. Children whose lives were lived behind locked doors, remembered only in whispers. History celebrates crowns, battles, and dynasties. But hidden within palaces were children who never wore crowns, never led armies, and were never allowed to be remembered. Children with Down syndrome, born into the world's most powerful families, yet denied the dignity of being seen. Their stories remind us of a painful truth, that power often fears vulnerability, and silence can erase even royal blood. But their lives mattered. Their love, their laughter, their humanity, even if hidden, were real. And by remembering them now, we restore what history tried to erase.